They had nowhere to turn but to their families, their friends, and the kindness of strangers. They had no idea when it would end, how it would end, or even if it would end. They saw grinding poverty and fabulous wealth side by side. Great armies of migrants on the move with nowhere to go.
This became known as the Golden Age of Comics, which sparked a revolution in the United States of America by creating a symbol of hope. This symbol of hope helped when it came to fighting fascism overseas by showing many comic book heroes physically go against some of the most sadistic figures of the time, which proved that the mindset during this era truly became a battle between good and evil. Comic book heroes symbolized this sense of high moral standards, which played a major role in American society by, in a sense, embodying what the Golden Age of Comics truly was all about, defining ethical and moral decisions in a period of time where there was truly no hope in sight.
My generation learned right from wrong, good from evil, the ethical and moral thing to do from comic books.
The origin of Batman starts with alienation and acceptance themes. It's the idea of a kid being orphaned by crime.
It's operatic, it's huge. It's, somebody on their knees crying over their dead parents.
The Batman TV show is a wonderful addition to the history of Batman by how popular it made it throughout the world. It wasn't necessarily the truest representation of what comic fans love about Batman because it itself wasn't taking itself seriously. It didn't really matter. It ultimately added to our history and why we still know Batman today.
It was a perfectly viable way to do a comedy show. They did it for about But it was popular for 2 years. It limped into a third year, and then, like somebody turning on a light, the camp fad was over. But when the camp fad was over, the comic books weren't.
Bill Finger and Bob Kane made this very clear in the rivalry between the Joker and the Batman. The Joker being an immoral character and Batman the moral figure. The Silver Age can be defined as a more forcefully withdrawn comic industry that still tackled on personal and political issues with a more humorous and family-friendly tone. The Comics Code Authority of 1954 is the reason for this. Unlike the Hays Code of 1930, which managed to regulate the movie industry and what could be shown to general audiences, comic books were almost uncensored until the creation of this code in the 1950s. The Comics Code Authority, of course, had a profound effect on the Silver Age by limiting content. This is why, during this time, the Joker was in danger of completely being cut due to his extreme criminal record. To battle this image, the Joker became even more comedic in his actions, and Batman became even more ethical and moral by having a strict code that he follows to this day.
As quickly as the latest wave of Batmania had washed over the pop culture landscape, it had receded. In its wake, Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil, led by Julie Schwartz, had redefined Batman for a new generation. The Dark Knight detective was back in a big way.
Going into the Bronze Age, the narrative became more about bringing back the dark nature of earlier comics and expanding upon that concept by creating stories that had social relevance. Having social relevance meant that comic book writers began learning more about what their consumers wanted out of comics and how to make them more appropriate for the right target audience. If it weren't for this, they would never have been able to bring in controversial subjects such as drug use, race, poverty, or pollution. In Batman's comics, it was obvious that they were trying to be more in tune with their audience, but despite this, no one expected the controversial move they pulled in the 1980s.
But one of the more controversial moves to come out of the 1980s simply started out as an exercise in audience involvement.
What if we could have the audience participate? What if we could have them call in and influence the story? That evolved into what became known around here as the telephone stud. Dick Grayson had graduated up to being Nightwing, and there was a second Robin put on stage, Jason Todd. To use an old-fashioned word, he became kind of a snot.
If you talk back to Batman, which Jason Todd did, they're going to vote to kill you.
He is in an explosion set by the Joker, and then the story ends. Did he live or did he die? Well, our readers had 3 days. If they called 1-800 number, he survived. If they called another 800 number, he did not survive.
Wow, that looked like it really hurt.
The modern age of comics, also known as the Dark Age of Comics for obvious reasons, is the most complex era that has defined characters in a more realistic way, and because of this it mixes all eras together in a very dark narrative that mirrors society almost perfectly by using real-life situations to drive the narrative. Instead of focusing on just morality, newer comics focus on the psychological aspects of the characters themselves. This gives the writers more space to focus on multi-dimensional plots versus a one-dimensional one that doesn't add to character development or story progression. All in all, I chose Batman's comics to focus on the social aspects of the different eras and how they have evolved to mirror society in many ways.
To me, Joker is somehow a much more rounded character. He's an enigma completely because he is very much the way a lot of us on some level are.
Never start with the head. The victim gets all fuzzy. He can't feel the neck. See? You wanted me. Here I am. I wanted to see what you'd do. And you didn't disappoint. You let 5 people die. Then you let Dent take your place. Even to a guy like me, that's cold. Where's Dent? Those mob fools want you gone so they can get back to the way things were. But I know the truth. There's no going back. You've changed things. Forever. Then why do you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No. No, you complete me. You're garbage. You kills for money. Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me. They need you right now. But when they don't, they'll cast you out. Like a leper. You see, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve. Where's Dent? You have all these rules, and you think they'll save you.
It's in control. I have one rule.
Oh, then that's the rule you'll have to break to know the truth.
Which is?
The only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. And tonight, you're gonna break your one